NewsNation political editor Chris Stirewalt. There watching the night unfold in person. Chris, your takeaways?
Y'all people are very hard on Mike Pence. Maybe they kept you all cooped up in there too long. But
I was nice.
That's true. That's true. I can tell you it was a different energy in the room, and I can tell you it was a different energy with the audience. And I think if we bear in mind what happened with Mitt Romney today, and we think about what's going on inside the Republican Party, which is a struggle for the control of the party, for the life of the party, and the traditional Republican Party, the conservatives, are losing. And that's not a nice thing to have to tell your party, right? It's not fun, as Mitt Romney had to do today, to come out and say, we're on the short end of the stick. In his speech last week, Mike Pence had tough medicine for his party, right? He said these populists, these nationalists, these folks are going to take over the party. We're going to lose the party, and it's going to be bad for the country. What he was trying to do tonight was take that message in a more palatable way to real voters, right? To tell people in Iowa where he's got to win. And basically it comes down to this. If you poll test everything, if you're like, okay, well, I'm at 5, how do I get to 7? And I think Morgan alluded to this quite well, which is we don't know what's going to happen from here to there. And really, as Ron DeSantis' campaign has effulgently proven, nobody really knows what's going to work. So what you ought to do is do what you think is right, stake your ground and stick to it, and hope that when the wheel turns around, that it turns in your favor. But the folks I talked to out here, talked to in the audience before and after, I got the sense that they came away with better feelings about Mike Pence than when they came in.
The issue for Pence, or one of them, Chris, is obviously, and we heard this from the audience tonight, which was, why now, right? Why challenge Donald Trump now? And he sort of needled him a little bit. He said Donald Trump had a, quote, very diverse background before they got into office, right? Donating to Democrats and Republicans. But as we were discussing during the commercial break, that was sort of tried in 2016 and didn't hit home. He said we don't need a president who is too old and not a president who is too young, essentially alluding to Biden and Trump and then, you know, Ramaswamy and maybe Ron DeSantis. But did he answer the question, for those in the audience, you know, you were there, I'm the guy for the Republican Party and not the guy that I worked for?
So you're looking for a flight to quality. The concept in investing is the same as in campaigns, that when things get weird and there's a crack up in support, that you want to be a blue chip where people go. And late in the game, as people are thinking about it, obviously Mike Pence had the most presidential, you know, this is our third one of these, more to come, but Mike Pence has the most presidential kind of bearing, and I'm sure he hopes that that redounds to his benefit later on. But we have to remember what Mike Pence's central problem is. I don't know that he fully addressed it tonight, which is for the quarter of the Republican Party that is determined not to return Donald Trump to power. For those folks, they're skeptical of Mike Pence for the reasons that you all laid out, that you all talked about. How can you stand shoulder to shoulder with this guy, praise him, excuse his errors, excuse misconduct? How can you do that and now tell us that you're going to lead the crusade? Because, of course, if you do what Chris Christie does and go take a torch to Trump like Frankenstein's monster, if you do that, you're turning off the other 3/4 of the party. Finding the voice to do that, and I think Pence is still not in a sufficient space when it comes to talking about what do you do if Donald Trump is the nominee, and he's not quite ready to get there yet. But I think he advanced the ball tonight, and I think he looked humane. I thought his interaction with that mom or with that guidance counselor and mother.
I want to roll that soundbite. Yeah, real quick. Let's for the audience who may not have seen it, about an hour ago. This is a mother and a social worker from Iowa. There were also questions from the First in the Nation, First Caucus state. Melissa, mother, social worker, about, bless you, Morgan, about LGBTQ rights and what to do about that with children. We'll get your reaction on the other side.
It is very hard for me to ask these questions after just hearing what I heard. What is your policy plan to protect the transgender community, specifically Black and brown trans women, from historically high levels of violence?
When it comes to surgical or chemical procedures, I really believe that we've got to protect our kids from decisions that will affect them the balance of their lives, while at the same time saying that adults can make decisions according to the dictates of their own conscience.
So that was the moment. Chris, you were in the room. What was it like there?
Yeah, and the thing is, Pence had the opportunity. That's a tough question, right? Right. And he had just answered a question from a young, expectant mother about her concerns in the opposite direction. I thought that what Mike Pence did in that exchange was be humane. He talked about loving her. He talked about loving his neighbor. He was clear on his policy about being opposed to surgical chemical interventions for minors, but talked about, we joke about how he often sounds like George W. Bush, but I was reminded of the way that George W. Bush successfully navigated questions around gay marriage and other things by talking about humanity and talking about loving your neighbor. And I thought that was a really good moment for Pence.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.